Your video.
Okay.
When the judge
Check it. Say it. Huh? No, you have to check that. Amen. Yeah.
It's getting a bit much better.
L'chaim. The Rebbe had a big koch in this Farbrengen. The Chassidim used to come. No, but the Rebbe spoke about it a lot. That the minig Chassidimism gekommen to the Selichos wackeln the kerheit. That they verbrengt so much and they had so much l'chaim and they couldn't walk a straight line by the time they got to Selichos. They came to Selichos, they were already shaking.
It's a good thing they weren't driving to Selichos.
So we're trying to be Mekayim what the Rebbe expects from us. So we try to take l'chaim for bring. By the time we get to Selichos, we'll be shaking. Is this a shake? It comes a Selichos. Someone mentioned my father mentioned the other day. There's someone a yeshiva man. He heard the Mashal the Alter Rebbe with the king in the field. He said, it's a very good mashal. The Rabbi say, he said, the king is L'chaim. I haven't seen you in a little bit. Very good. Come, make l'chaim. Moshe l'chaim.
Fine.
I did it, ya, my la, my da, ya, did it, ya, I did it, Chaim lebrocha. Oh man, tzivach samatova. Ay ya 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 la da la da ya 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 ma ya da ya da ya ya da ya da la 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 ya da ya da ya da ya da ay ya ya ma ya da la la ya da la la ya ma la da ya da ya la 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 ya da ya da ya ya la 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 ya ma ya 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 ma ya 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 la 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 ma ya 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 la 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 ay ya ya ma ya ya ma ya ya Chaim Chaim Ayerereraya, mayerereraya, mayayayayayara. Ayerereraya, mayerereraya, mayaya. Ayerayayarayayarayayayaya. Ayerayayarayayaya. Yeah, ay, 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 yeah, 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 Chaim L'chaim. It's a Shabbos, the story of the Baal Shem Tov. So basically, Menachem Mendel Baruch Hashem, we set up with Chazonim for the Yom Tovim. So Baal Shem Tov was once looking for Baalei Tefillah, and a few Baalei Tefillah came, and each one the Baal Shem Tov asked, the Baal Shem Tov didn't like any one of them. Then we came up with Shrache Chazon, Shrache Baal Tefillah, and he tried his luck. Maybe Baal Shem Tov would hire him. And he said, Baal Shem Tov said, no, let's hear. And he started doing yet an abbreviated nusach, and the whole thing was like really fluffy, and it was lebedik. Baal Shem Tov said, what? This doesn't sound like a Rosh Yom Kippur davening. It sounds like some Torah. He said, look, there were people that had a job to clean up the stables of the king. It stinks. You got to clean it up. Thomas Jefferson, when he came down to get his horses, he wanted those slaves to make sure that place was clean. He didn't care about them. He cared about the stable. The stable needed to be clean. So some of them would say Ochem ve, we're servants and we have to clean the stable. But there was one guy who loved the Melech, And when he used to clean up the stables, he used to sing and hum and tune. It was Labadik. He loved the Melech. The Melech likes that the stable should be clean, and he would sing a Labadik song. So the Rebbeinu Shalom wants the stables to be clean, and Mamachton Agan Seyor, and it stinks. It comes Rosh Yom Kippur, we clean things up. So why should we do it? Why should we kvetch? It's very exciting. The Baal Shem Tov like it shot. The Baal Shem Tov hired him for the job. So actually, for a while people were complaining that at the Yom Kippur in the morning we have the tefillas at the Baal Tefillah here. They do it as like the piyutim with lebetik and aguna when they go through as like. Anyway, so that's the answer. So l'chaim. We're going in. A little bit old. It's not. It wasn't. Yeah, the good someone.
The good the Rebbe top,
Right.
at least the third to half.
Right.
Right. What happened here?
Right.
Right.
Quite serious. Yeah. Anyway, l'chaim. We're in the final stretch of Chodesh Elul, and every mitzvah is to be done with simcha. Every mitzvah, there's no such thing. You never know of a mitzvah that's not with simcha. But mitzvah tshuva, especially, there's the union of simcha mitzvah tshuva. Why is it simcha? Simcha tshuva l'chayre dav shirayin. Oy oy oy. You turn on aveda. So you learn Tanya. You get the explanation. How do you have simcha? Per person, how do you do tshuva and simcha? The Alter Rebbe has a whole thing. There is, but by Pashtus, if you're a person's lethargic and he does something and B'meila doesn't get done. If he does something when he's merid, even though in Tanya talks about difference of meridus and atzvus, atzvus makes a person depressed, it puts him to bed. Meridus galvanizes a person, but still, it comes to the labdikait from simcha. Simcha is pointed together. The Rebbe always used to say simcha is pointed together. Simcha makes there should be no boundary. A person to simcha, he feels like he could do anything. So tshuva is unbelievable mitzvah. El dvarim shein lam shir doesn't have a shir lamat, doesn't have a shir lamayla. Tshuva is an unbelievable thing. So to do with simcha. So that's why the Rebbe had a big koch in Motzah Shabbos. The Rebbe had the koch, the Motzah Shabbos before Selichos. That the Rebbe said that there is a Farbrengen, and the minhag Chassidim was that by the time they got to Selichos, that gegangen waklam the kehed, had so much l'chaim and so much Farbrengen, but at that time they got to Selichos, it was shaking. So l'chaim, that taka we should come to Selichos waklam the kehed. L'chaim.
You have to drink some more of that.
I could be simple without but
No, but you
No,
have to
everybody-
be shackled with it. You have to say, you have to be shackled with
Everyone needs a little amount.
Time.
I have a story of the Rebbe, which I think everyone here could share with their wives who are married. And think about.
As Shmuel.
No, this will set the tone. A beautiful story. It's told by Dr. Mayer Whitler. And he just got back from there, where he heard the story from his Rav, Nachum Cohen.
Who is Rav here, the
The
story?
well-known Kugel. And to some degree, he's my daughter-in-law's Rav. Anyway, so Reb Nachum tells Dr. a few weeks ago that he was thinking of a way of increasing his parnasa. So he thought that since he helped many women with shidduchim, brachas for shidduchim, so he would ask them to give him 20 shekels, and a few dollars, but it would be something. So he goes to sleep that night, and during his halom, the Rebbe comes to him. And the Rebbe says to him that Shemayim is very happy with his work, helping women get married. And then I add, Aval Parnassah is from Shemai. And, all right, so the Rebbe spoke in Yiddish to Nachum. Nachum had yeshivas once with the Rebbe. And when he woke up, he realized that charging the women was a non-starter. A few days later, the gentleman comes to him and hands him 10,000 shekel. And so Reb Nachum says, Mazel, what's this for? Said, don't you remember I came to you for business advice during the summer, this summer. And this is Maser from the business advice. You know, this is Maser.
Now sing an English. I love it. I love this story. Now sing an English.
What?
I love this story. Now sing an English.
Okay, I just wanted to say one other thing.
He didn't finish the story.
One other thing. I told the story to a nearby rabbi in this neighborhood. And we had just finished the Moreh Nevuchim on Chav Zion, in which the Rambam says that Hashem is watching us, observing us, is with us, and we have to live our lives understanding that Hashem wants us to do his will. And immediately after that, Moreh Nevuchim, I told Rabbi Khan that story, but he knows Mayor Wycliffe. So he knows that the story is 100%. And when I approached his son, when I saw him the next day, I said, let me tell you the story I told your father. And he said, my father told me. My father was very impressed with that story. So we should think about it. The Rebbe came, Shemayim sent the Rebbe to Nachum Cohen recently in order to tell him, give him the message from Shemayim. So we should think that Hashem is observing us, is celebrating Elul, he's in the field, and think about that story, that Hashem is with us.
Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, I'm
L'chaim David.
I was gonna tell today, but I will be giving the Red Cohen the names of women who want to do him, as well as those who want children, etc. And so if anybody knows someone who needs a big bracha through Nachum Cohen, you're welcome to give it to me before I leave on Thursday.
We're going,
For Tishri.
wow.
What?
If you help us on 17, we live into a big shoe.
Well, then, you know something, I will add that to what I'm going
No,
to.
they put it in the first line.
First,
Yeah.
first line,
Yes.
but anyone's
Are
welcome
you
to
taking
give me.
Kvitlach with the Kaisel?
What?
Kvitlach with the Kaisel.
Yes, I'll do that too, sure.
Are you
And
going
that's
to any
where-
comments of Kedoshim? I want to know how many Kvitlach there are.
Listen,
Let me know.
anyone is welcome to give me what they want to put in the hotel and to give it to, or to give to Red Knox, you're welcome to do it.
So there's a Yid that published a story 3 weeks ago. He told the story to Kfar Chabad magazine. A Yid in Yerushalayim, I think his name was Moti Strasberg. In Toshin Chov Ches, it was Yom Tovim time. It's still 1967. He's offered an unbelievable job. At that time, he was heading the office he was administrator. He was heading the office for Shlomo Gordon. But he had an unbelievable job in Yerushalayim. There was a hospital, Bika Cholim. Choshev hospital was already 150 years old.
Yeah.
It was a very choshev hospital, and he was offered the job to become the CEO of the hospital.
Whoa.
And it was a very nice job, and also a very lucrative job. And the pay was bein to what he was getting at that time. The benefits were also much better. And so Elamai, his wife was Chabad family, and she said, why don't you write a letter to the Rebbe? And he also had met the Rebbe a few times because he came with Reb Shlomo Goren to America, and he'd been by the Rebbe. So he wrote a letter to the Rebbe, and he wrote all the protem. And he gets a letter back from the Rebbe that Bechlolis is a very good Indian, but you should check if the pension is Masuda. He never wrote that there's a problem with the pension. So he was wondering what's the pshat. His wife said, why don't we go to his elder Lubavitch Chosid, Rav Sasonkin, Patum Erov. So they went to Rav Sasonkin. Rav Sasonkin said, look, if the Rebbe says that you should check about the pension, you didn't write about the pension. There is no pension there. So, okay, it seemed like a really good job, but and he decided to decline the job. 10 years ago, the hospital went into bankruptcy. It was taken over by Shari Tzedek. It turned out that the funds were so terribly mismanaged that it was an unbelievable mess. The worst part of the scandal was that supposedly, every institution like this puts money away for retirement, and there was not a nickel or dime put away.
Wow.
And the kids, all the people that have been Nebuch working, they gave their whole life away. That were left with zero, no pension or nothing. Like every government is, whatever Social Security in Israel, not sure, but there was no pension.
They didn't deduct from the paychecks.
They deducted
They
from
did.
the paychecks.
Wow.
But it was nowhere to be found. That money was nowhere to be found when this whole Nebuch hospital broke apart. Shar Tzedek took them over, but they didn't take over. They didn't resume responsibility for the people's pensions who worked there for years and years and years. So Baruch Hashem, he's whatever other jobs he had were not as choshev, but his pension is Masudim. So I was reading it, and there was a shkocha protest that week. That week it was Pasha Shoifted, and the last Farbrengen we have from the Rebbe, a beautiful word that the Rebbe said that what's the pshat Shoiftim v'Shoitim Tiknulacho, and yet the Navi says Shiva Shiftach v'Rishon K'V'Yotzayach Kevatchila. That why is it the pasuk calls it Shoiftim v'Shoitim, and in the Navi, and the same thing the Tefillah, which is based on the Navi, is Shiva Shiftenu K'Rishon V'Yotzenu Kevatchila. So the Rebbe says we find that Shoitim are not in the minyan mitzvahs. It's a prat. Why? Because if everyone was a gentleman, we wouldn't need a shoiter. We only need a shoiter if people are not going to listen to the dayan. Mashiach will come. People will listen to the dayan, so we don't need the shoiter. What we're going to need? Yoyatz. What's the difference between a shoiter and a yoyatz? Shoiter is the guy doesn't want to do. So the guy comes with a big stick, with a gun, with a taser, with handcuffs. And that's the ultimate of top heavy. What's a yoyatz? Yoyatz is the opposite. He's coming with a pair of pants. It's not going to force anyone to do anything.
Social work.
There's halavai. If a social worker knew how to do their job, that's theoretically what a social worker is.
Replace police officer, social work.
Yeah. Can come out the shoyter needs a shoyter. So what's a yoyetz? Yoyetz is the opposite. The yoyetz is Ayid wants to have a chayis to see how kihem chayenu. It's like the mashpia. What's the Rebbe's whole koch was we should have mashpiyim. What's the idea of a mashpia? Mashpia that has a big stick over you. What's a mashpia? Mashpia is someone that you want to hear. You want to hear something. Abisal Musa from your mashpia. You want your mashpia to tell you something. You want your mashpia to help you out. To where you can grow beruchnius, where you can take your next step. So that's the pshat. The machatchila, there'll be shoiftim and shoitrim, and then there'll be yoyatzim, sagt the Rebbe. Mashiach kumen. But you're not going to need to have shoitrim. We're not going to need policemen with big sticks. But we need yoyatzim. Mashpiyim mit menachdaf and hom. Even Mashiach will come when you need to have mashpiyim. So, so this is definitely we're going into New Year Punkt Hashgacha Pratis tonight. Someone came to talk to me about a mashpia. Definitely a good time to think about. There's we see ourselves. We don't sometimes see from the outside. The Rebbe had a big talk. The Chazal say, "Asay l'chorav, k'nei l'chochover." That every yid should have mashpia. Definitely every Lubavitch Chosses to make sure we have a mashpia. We see Taka that's the mile of a yoyetz, the eitzes. Sure, I was at our home last week, so Motzei Shabbos, and there's one of his. He had a schus to have unbelievable amount of Selichos. He started off Chabad on campus, but there's a certain story. The half a cup of orange juice. I always love that he should tell over the kids the story with a half a cup of orange juice. So there was a. He went to the Selichos to London, Ontario. There was a professor, the Professor Block. Was there and the Rebbe pushed him. He should become a professor in philosophy. Which philosophy? Aristotle. He wrote a paper. He was about tshuva. The Rebbe told him he has to go back. Wanted him to go to Harvard. He wrote an article. He sent it into a philosophical magazine, and there was something about Aristotle, but there was nicht given angenommen by the magazine. The Rebbe had a contact, someone that was in the board of directors of the magazine, and the Rebbe asked him, "How come it's my Talmud? How come they're not publishing his article?" They published the article, and Avaisis created a little bit of a storm. He got a name, but kids said the Rebbe wanted he should take this job in London, Ontario. Shulchan came to help him out, and B'toich Advorim, he told them that there's a story with his balabos that the two partners, and they had a very lucrative business with a metal business, a gute Geschäft, and gemacht gute Geld, and they were selling. They had big contracts with the state of Canada. The government alleged that they defrauded the government. They overcharged. They underdelivered. They did. So there was a court case against the Shulchan, and all the mumchim said that it's 90% that they're going to win. But for Dr. Block told this person, forget the name, that Haki, your lawyer is telling you that you're going to win, but batuach, write a letter to the Rebbe, and you can write. The Rebbe said, "B'dikas atfilm." So he came back to the man. He says, "The Rebbe said Dikas tefillin." No, my tefillin is kosher. I don't want you touching my tefillin. Okay. Dr. Block was not with the mishpacha, so he spoke to the man's wife that in the morning, the afternoon, when you come to the house, she'll give him the tefillin. He's going to fly to Toronto, bring it to a sofer. I'll come back that night and bring back the tefillin. Okay. Come to Toronto, open the tefillin, it's a kosher. The apostle of tefillin l'chatchila. So on the spot, he asks the if you have, he has a. So Professor Block tells the Bacham, I bought him a Cadillac pair of tefillin. Bought him a Cadillac pair of tefillin, brought it back to him. And he told the balabas, "Look, your tefillin is possible. Here's a Cadillac pair of tefillins for you." What? You took my tefillin? I got it. He was so angry. I'm not wearing tefillin anymore. Okay. He lost the court case, and Nebuchadnezzar had a mental breakdown. At geworden the Nerven, und wir waren ganz lang gezogen. Darf man sitzen 20 Jahre in Twisse. And now he's recovering. He came back home. Baruch Hashem, he's stabilized. He came back home, but his Nebuch is in it. So he asked the Bochum if they want to come visit him. So they said, yeah, why not? Come visit him. Came to his office, and they told him about the Rebbe, told him stories. He was in a fancy office at that time, like a bar fridge. His office, he had a little bar fridge. He opened it up, and he gave each one of them. He gave each one of them a half a cup of oranges, because he's giving it to them with a half a heart. The Rebbe Shmuel was on this little break. They gave him a half a cup of oranges, a half a heart. Well, they spoke to him more. With the mangiret and the legna portion. So he rolled up his sleeves, and he put on film. And all of a sudden, like he melted. Like they told him, they never told you to which film. He said, but now it's over. He said now that they're going to appeal. But the lawyers are telling him is 90% he's going to lose on the appeal. Now it's 90% he's going to lose. So the Bachman said, but the Rebbe gave you a bracha. He said, you put on the film. Okay, I'm going to start putting on the film. Bachman said, for sure you're going to win the case. So he opened the fridge again, and he took out the orange juice, and he gave them a full cup of orange juice. He said, now it's with a full heart. And you know what? Kachava, he put on film every day, and he won the case. Kachava, he won the case. L'chaim, we have a zerchet to have taka, that we have we have a Rebbe who's a yoyitz, and gives us taka eitzes toivus, and one of the eitzes that Rebbe wanted every one of us to taka, we should have mashpiyim. Now is the time, as we go into New Year, to make sure that every one of them, we're boy the tomb, boy the mezuzah, and we're boy the come out the mashpiyah. And if the mashpiyah didn't was really nice to us, Gemara says, "Kol pshuva derabanan derochem leibei masa shmam olav tzuma rabanu." So that is good. So if our mashpiyah is not talking to us, or he's talking to us too softly, we have to make sure to tell the mashpiyah that we're not made out of sugar, even though we're sweet. But can sorgen, l'chaim, as l'tak zoicha zayin, v'shiva shiftenu v'rishonu v'tzenu v'atchila, v'gei takaran eslichas, l'chashem atzdoko. Taka, we're asking the Eibishter not that we deserve, but we ask him to tzedakah. But tzedakah, not to listen, says if a person is Aish Oni and he was used to going on a sus, so you have to give him even a sus. So Ben Avram, the Rebbe says in the Selichos, Ben Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. So if the Eibush has to give us stock attacker, we don't demand anything. He doesn't owe us anything. If he owes us, how much do you owe us already? How much you have to give the Torah tzedakah? It's Ben Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. So the Eibush attacker should give l'chol Hashem tzedakah. That we give the Eibush should give us Torah tzedakah. And if he gives us Torah tzedakah, how much does he have to give? How much he can afford to give? Well, I have to give my I have to give how much I can afford. How much can I afford to give already? But the Rebbeinu Shalom has to give tzedakah. He has to give how much he can afford. The Rebbeinu Shalom can afford. He can afford plenty. So the Eibush should give l'chol Hashem tzedakah, because it's as we finish off as Avinu Malkeinu. So the Eibush should give l'chol Hashem tzedakah miyodam le'apsucha, that everything that we need, the Gashmis, the Beruchnis, Bebon Chaim, Azon Revicha, Ksivach Samatoyva, Shana Toyva Msuka, Dikir Bias Mashiach Tzidkeinu.
Amen.
closing YouTube.